As seasons change and years go by, time has a way of pulling things apart. Friends and families branch off, surrounding themselves with children much younger than themselves. Before long, you look around and not many things at all are the same age as you. But when you do find them, there's a comfort in being around others with a similar vintage. Because it's rare, and because you share memories of a past no one else can fully understand. This is the kinship between the University of North Georgia and the old Sautee store. Both over 150 years old, created just 1 year apart, standing in time together. Few things in such close proximity have endured as they have. One brings people who have grown apart back together each year, while the other creates a space for new memories before lives branch out once again. And for forging these bonds, it's hard to find something as effective as the cadet program at the University of North Georgia. As a former cadet, James Corbin knows the value of this program, and he knows the strength of the bonds he's built serving as a combat veteran in America's Army.
Joy and for peace, it's the most powerful thing I can do. I'm praying for you.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Old Sautee Show. We got live music today from special guest James Corbin. Don, how are you today?
Doing good, Buster. How are you?
I am doing fantastic.
It'd be hard not to be doing well on a day like today. It's a beautiful day in the fall time in the North Georgia mountains. Couldn't be much better than that. And today we have Mr. Bruce Mundy, who is not a stranger to us here. He's one of our musicians and comes and plays with us every week. And today Bill Cohen could not be with us, so Bruce has been gracious enough to fill in for Bill and be on our show, and we just really appreciate Bruce.
I appreciate being here, and I really look forward to hearing James again because he's got a great story and a wonderful talent.
Well, I was able to mention on the show last week a couple of our musicians that come on Saturdays and play and sing with us, and I also wanted to thank you for all that you do.
And, we have a big time on Saturdays.
And giving of your time, but your talents are so appreciated. People love it so much. And,
thank you.
And thanks again.
A little bit about our guest today, James Corbin. He is a United States Army combat veteran who currently serves as the Director of Development at the Corps of Cadets at the University of North Georgia in Dahlonega. He's also a recording artist who's been writing, performing, and recording his own music for the last 25 years, and we're very fortunate to have him today on the program. Thanks for joining us, James.
Happy to be here. Love you guys. It's awesome.
All right, so right off the rip, you're a combat veteran. How did you come about joining the United States Army?
Well, hunger is a good motivator. And I was 23 years old. And I had a band. We were touring around, and I was working in nursing homes and building houses and doing all this stuff, trying to make a living, and realized that I'm not handy. And I don't have a family business to fall back under. And I always knew I wanted to serve. My father had served, my grandfather, many people that I respect and looked up to, Boy Scout leaders, etc., had served. And I'd been running around the woods with a stick my whole life. So it was sort of who I was. And my dad had gone to North Georgia College, which is a senior military college, and I'm enough like him. I said I'd probably do all right there and may have a chance of actually graduating college. I had a few fits and starts in other places. And so I went to North Georgia when I was 23 and graduated from there, met my wife there, and commissioned into the Army as an armor officer, and then off I ran.
That was back in the day when it was 70% females.
Yes,
over there.
the odds were say the odds were good and the goods were odd, but I certainly outkicked my coverage with my wife, but yeah, it was a target-rich environment. Certainly a good motivator to go get in uniform, to know that about 3-to-1 female to male ratio at the time. Good pickings.
Yeah. Well, James, tell us a little bit about your role as the with the cadets there at the university?
Yeah, thanks. So I work with Lieutenant General retired James Terry. He's class of '78, and our foundation to basically help bring resources, partners, friends, alumni, etc., to the Corps of Cadets to basically help us to go to the next level. State funding to higher education in general has been sort of flat for years, and it takes a lot to run a military program like North Georgia's, and you got to have friends. You need to have people who are willing to give of their time, their talent, their treasure to help us get out there. We've always been kind of a small, unknown type place, even though we've produced some of the most amazing general officers, combat leaders for years. Highly competitive program, but we're just not well known, and so we need people to help us get the word out there. Right now, the commander of the 75th Ranger Regiment's a classmate of mine, Kid Aboho. We've got commanders, the Deputy Commanding General of Pacific Command in charge of all of the Pacific is a North Georgia guy. You know, the Commanding General of the Georgia Army National Guard and the Adjutant General of the state of Georgia are North Georgia guys. No one ever really understands how important North Georgia's Corps of Cadets is to the state, the region, the nation. My job is to help get that word out there and bring people who are patriotic, who share our values, to come get to work and help us to continue to produce leaders of character. And I'll just say one last thing. It changed my life, and I did not know when I went to North Georgia that I was going to be a combat vet. I thought I was going to go and play softball, tournaments, and maybe go shoot some tanks. And the towers fell while I was at North Georgia, and I knew that my life was forever changed. And I'm very thankful that I had the training I got at North Georgia, because I was prepared as you can be. And I want those kids to be the same. I hope they don't ever face it, but if they do, we're going to make sure they're ready. That's why I do it.
What goes into molding an 18-year-old to be a leader in the United States military in 4 years?
That's a great question. And everyone comes from different backgrounds. Some have great values and strong families and faith communities and all the things that happen, and some don't. And we live in a time where everyone's sort of making it up as they go, what's right, what's wrong. And you bring them in, you establish very clear expectations. We don't make excuses. We own what we do and what we fail to do. We provide straight lines, square corners, and opportunity for them to practice and apply the principles of leadership. But that starts with self-leadership. That starts with getting up, getting the right uniform, the right place, right time, right attitude, and performing to the best of your ability. You build on that. Slowly give them a little more responsibility, time of reflection with some of the cadre and people that work with them to help them to see what's working, what's not, and maybe why it is or isn't. And then repetition, and then go get it. And you better go and win, because you got a strong foundation, and you got a lot of people who are rooting on you and expecting you to carry that banner for us.
Well, we certainly thank you for your service, but you carried your music with you when you were deployed. You made that part of your life over there. Tell us about that, James.
Music and songwriting in particular is a gift I'm forever thankful to God for. My dad taught us how to play when we were little, and I never knew how important that would be for my life. I wrote, mainly in high school when my brothers had a band and all the girls would come see them play. They were called Everman Jones and the Stick People. And all the girls, all the good-looking girls in my high school would say, "Hey, your brother's playing this weekend?" I'd be like, "Yeah, take us with you." So I would go, and I'd have all these girls. So that kick-started songwriting for me. And I wrote, in college, I put out a record called Dichotomy when I was at North Georgia. I played music to sort of have a little spending money, but I didn't have a ton to say because I hadn't had real life experiences. I had the life experiences of an 18, 19, 20-year-old kid who hadn't really faced adversity. But when I went to Iraq, almost immediately after graduating from North Georgia, I had my first platoon. I realized that I could bring some levity. I like to write some funny songs, and so we would sit out there. I had just this Iraqi guitar that somebody had found, and I sat out there on the porch and I would play these songs, make up songs, and people would laugh, and it was cathartic. I didn't write a lot that first tour. I had 3 total. But my second tour, I had young kids at home, and it was deadly. We lost a lot of people really quickly. And I wrote a song called I Just Don't Get It. I had a little backpacker guitar about this big in my tent. And when TJ got shot, I came back and I saw on Armed Forces Network, everybody was talking about Alex Rodriguez at the time testing positive for steroids. This was like in 2007. And Britney Spears had been caught without her underwear on. And meanwhile, I'm looking at this guy, TJ, who was on his very, very first patrol. This strong ranger had just been shot. And I couldn't reconcile it. How stupid I felt and how disconnected our country was, and how sad and messed up with emotions I felt. And I just sat down and wrote. And boy, I tell you, I started writing, and it seemed like every day a new song was coming out of me. And it wasn't for anything else, I don't believe, other than to tell a story that maybe only somebody like me and the guys around me could tell. And God had just given me the ability to do it, and I just did it. I wrote a whole record. It's called From Baghdad to Bisbee, and about 15 others that weren't on that record, about what I was feeling over there. Some of it was heavy, and some of it was funny, Z71 and the argument song. But that's what kick-started real writing for me. Authentic writing, I think.
Well, I checked all the plugs and I scrubbed that engine clean. I even army rolled the cracking dash, and I rotated the tires, and I fixed that squeaking noise. I even made sure it was full of gas. You see, my old lady was taking a drive southbound on 85 to see some kinfolk and check on the old home place. So I listened to the hum of my old Z71. I just wanted her to get there safe. But on Belton Bridge, down by Shepherd's Ridge, is a place I lost my baby for good. She went flying in the lake. Now my heart, it only aches. I forgot to change the brakes like I said I would. So I got the news. Sheriff Jones told me the tale. Well, sometimes I swear I've got the world's worst luck. 'Cause y'all, I love that Z71. Me and her had so much fun. I ain't mourning the missus, but I sure miss my truck. 'Cause on Belton Bridge, down by Shepherd's Ridge, is a place I lost my baby for good. She went flying in the lake. Now my heart, it only aches. I forgot to change the brakes like I said I would. Now I am in this jail, and I can't afford my bail. They think I killed my old lady for spite, just 'cause someone heard us yell down by the old cobblestone well. Just happened to be that previous night. Well, God knows I'll testify and say that there ain't no doggone way that I would hurt a frame and body so nice. 'Cause y'all, I love that Z71 almost as much as my shotgun. And I think that one shell would have sufficed. But on Belton Bridge, down by Shepherd's Ridge, is a place I lost my baby for good. She went flying in the lake. Now my heart, it only aches. I forgot to change the brakes like I said I would. Like I said I would. Thank you.
I've got a question for you, James. As a musician myself, how did you interact with your fellow soldiers with your songwriting? Were you able to share the particular songs, really the funny songs like Z71, for example? I would think you'd be a real source of comfort for them.
Yeah, we were in the middle of nowhere, Bruce, and there was no Bob Hope coming to us. And you know, we'd hear about Toby Keith coming to Iraq and be like, "Ain't no way he's coming where we are." We were way out, and so I and a couple other soldiers. I mean, there were other guys that had talent would sit around and try to pick, and it just really was a diversion from all that you were seeing and experiencing. It was a few minutes of time where you felt like you were with your buddies and you had a beer and you were sitting around making up songs.
Sitting around the campfire.
Yeah. So it was really a respite. And I felt honored to have the privilege, really, of being able to be that person for somebody. And I didn't realize how much it was helping me, too. And so that's how we would do it. We would just sit around when we had an opportunity. And I had the guitar nearby. I would pick on it a little bit, and somebody would say, "Hey, play that song about the truck," and you know, we would do that. So that's sort of how it went. I didn't generally play the heavy stuff with them.
No.
That was really for me.
Now, what type of song do you enjoy writing the most? Because I love Z71. In Omaha, there's not enough Kleenex made east of the Mississippi, you know, with Omaha.
Yeah.
But each one of those songs has a real specific meaning to it.
Yeah. So I grew up on John Prine, Bob Dylan, Chris Christopherson, people like that. And they told stories. Yeah. And they weren't the best singers, they weren't the best guitar players, which I'm definitely in that line. But man, they could tell a story and you could connect with them. And so when I'm inspired to do it, I'll just sit down and I say that I want to tell this story. I got 3 in my head right now. I want to tell that story. I want to do it right. Omaha is something I've been in my head for 15, 20 years and finally sat down, you know, and wrote it. But let me tell you this real quick, this one story. This is the power of music. I'd been with this one unit for 5 years and deployed twice with them. And that was my family, away from my family. And I was leaving in the middle of the tour to go back for a course. And we were going to have a talent show one night in the Super Bowl. My battalion commander put this thing on, and so I pulled up the history of the 9th Infantry Regiment, and I said, I'm going to see if I can tell the story of our unit. And so I wrote this song. I wrote from, I don't know when it was, 1899 until 2000, whatever it was at the time, 10, called The Fighting Ninth. And we were in this talent show, and these kids got up and they were playing and they were doing all this stuff. And Colonel Bigger said, James, I heard that, they called me Bud in the Army, says, hey, Bud, I heard you got a song for us. I said, I just finished it. And I did, these are all infantry studs, you know, and I sit down with this book, and I have to read it while I'm doing, there's a video of it. And when I finished the last line of that song, this whole place stood up, screaming. And I was like, oh my gosh. They felt like, because I tried to close the loop on why we were doing this. Why were we here? Why were we still in Iraq again? And what is the point of it all? And I felt like I had been able to channel that, and these kids, these soldiers, these men just lost it. And then that song, the Vietnam veterans from 4-9 heard about it and asked me to come to Colorado Springs and play it at their reunion. And when I got to the Vietnam verse, the same thing happened. 500 Vietnam era veterans and their wives just went ballistic. And I'm sitting there trying to hold back tears while I'm playing in the middle of this, in the conference room, ballroom. And I just realized there's something about being able to speak what you're feeling, speak what you're seeing. And when you can put it to song, it connects people in ways that no book can, no movie can. And when those men went crazy on me, I said, God. And I just wanted to say, thank you, Lord. Like, it's not even a great song. It's just a story of what we've been through.
That's a great story.
Same with Omaha, you know. So I don't know. That's the best I can describe about how we would do it together.
That's good. That's good.
And then this guy told me that Vietnam vets were not even allowed in the American Legion or the VFW when they came back. And they said, we told ourselves right then and there that we would never let another generation of veterans feel what we had felt. And they were true to it. They've been true to their word. Those are the most philanthropic, veteran supporting, advocating people I've ever met. And by God, I want them to know that the Iraq and Afghanistan veterans have seen it, and we're going to take that mantle. And then that guy asked me to play Sam Stone. You ever heard that song? You ever heard Sam Stone by John Prine? Oh, it's about a Vietnam vet that came back strung out on morphine, couldn't get his life back together, and you could tell the guy that asked me had been through a lot of that. And I said, you don't want me to play Sam Stone? He goes, you just play it, I'll sing it. Oof. Most powerful moment I've ever had in music was sitting there playing Sam Stone and listening to this guy who you could tell had earned every crack in his voice, singing that. That was his song, his story. Music, man, powerful.
Well, it certainly has made a lot of friends. Music here, just at the store.
Yeah.
And, we've known each other a couple of years now, and that came through music. And now to hear your story and know a lot more about you is just amazing. And had it not been for the music, we probably would never had that opportunity.
That's true. That's true. It's been a blessing.
So your creative process, do you let inspiration strike, or do you sit with it every day for a set amount of time and just put the work in, so to speak?
It's happened a bunch of different ways. My cup runneth over between work and I'm a part of a church plan. I do the worship music there, and I got 3 children still at home. So there's no sitting with anything for a long period of time. There's some songs, like there's a song I wrote about the Civil War called Red Dandelions that I woke up at 2 in the morning when I was 18 years old and wrote that without stop. And then there's a song like Omaha where I have an idea that I just sort of sit on until something hits me. Usually it starts with music. Like I'll find a musical something that I like, and I start
riff or something.
Yeah, and I'll just start making up words, doing some Louis Armstrong scat over time, over it. And once I get a meter of how I want the words and the melody to go, then I just start writing, and whatever comes of it, comes of it. Truth is, it's not good, it's not bad, it's just that's like a new child in the world, and maybe I'll refine it over time, but generally I walk away from it, so there it is.
On to the next one.
On to the next one. Like, I made enough gas money to get up here, so I mean, it's not like I'm living off of it. It's just something that I feel like when it's time and you just know it is, like I need to write another song, or you have an experience like that kid at the group home that I met that I said, I got to tell that story. I got to find a way to tell that story, and then I'll just sit down, and usually starts with the music, and then I'll start just making up words that work. I wish there was something sexier to it, but that's sort of how it goes.
You watch enough behind the music, it seems to be that's a common theme amongst even the most popular artists.
Yeah.
You just go with what works, and when it's done, move on to the next one.
Well, it's like the 3 chords and a truth thing, It's just I'm not overly complicated in what I do. I think the lyrics and the story matters most of all, and I just go with it, see where it takes me. There's one song called Homemade Wine where my brother had given me a book called The Artist's Way. So I said, man, I hadn't written a song in 3 years. He goes, well, why not? I said, I don't know. I hadn't had anything that inspire me or whatever. He says, forget that. Just start writing. And so the first line of that song is, I don't know what I'll write as I sit on my front porch tonight. Reckon I'll do it off the top of my head. Or else I'd just overdo it instead. And then all of a sudden, there it goes. And the song's done. It's one of my favorite rockabilly tunes ever wrote. And it was all just stream of consciousness. Just write. all of us need to find some way to reflect on what's inside us. You know, otherwise you just pent up all the time. So writing's a good way to do it, and don't worry about how it sounds or what it ends up as.
Just get it out.
Just get it out. Go from there.
Now I'm curious, you mentioned before we started recording that you used to play on the streets of Dahlonega when you were a student. How does an 18-year-old busker adjust to entering the Corps of Cadets?
Yeah, I think you got that mixed up. So I was 23 when I came to North Georgia, and I'd met a guy named Steve Wiley who owned what is now 19 North. Wiley's was he's a restaurant, and then downstairs, I call it the Black Lung, was a bar, and someone told him I could play, and I went over there and started playing on Monday nights. So I got, I think, $100 when I played, and I was like, man, that's sweet, that's good money. And so I made $100 a night while I was playing there, and I played a couple nights a week sometimes. And then I was a grave digger on the side, and then in the middle of the Corps at the same time. And so I wasn't busking on the street, but it might as well be. And I don't know how many years off my life I lost down there, because that was back when everybody could smoke like nonstop, and there was no ventilation. It was awesome. Yeah, that's right. You could cut it with a knife. But yeah, that was sort of our getaway. We'd go to Wiley's and do that, and then I was in a little fraternity, and I'd play some stuff for those guys too. They wanted to do like candlelight nights, and I'd have to like bring all the sappy stuff I knew, and that's how I paid my dues.
James Corbin, unplugged.
That's exactly right. Yeah, but it worked. It was fun. It just gave me something to do. When you're a cadet, you got to go pretty hard all the time, and it was a way to sort of just be a normal, remind me of sort of another life. I feel like I've lived about 6 lives already.
It sounds like it.
Yeah, I've been all over the place, and so it would give me a chance to sort of keep that fire going. And I was insecure. I was 23 years old. I just basically come out of a bar right to Frog Week, and I'm getting yelled at by a 19-year-old, and I'm locked up at parade rest, you know, and I'm 23. And once they found out I was old, they said, old. I was old to them. They called me Papa Frog. But I didn't know where I fit, you know what I mean? And so music was a way for me to just sort of, it was comfortable. When I have this guitar behind me, I feel like I'm
like a bullet. It's like a bullet.
It is. It's like a bulletproof vest.
Yeah.
So it was my way of sort of being social without having to be totally social.
Well, James, you don't know how much we appreciate you coming by today. I know you've got another engagement this evening.
Oh yeah,
and,
that's right.
You probably need to get on the road, but thanks again, and I hope that we can get one more song out of you before you go.
That'd be my honor. Love to. I enjoyed being with y'all. This is fun.
Here's the story of Tommy McCay. He weighed 160, 5'8", but solid as a rock, from chucking that hay all day in the Midwest sun. He was angry and wild and barely 17, in trouble with the law since 1943, when Manawa Dike sprung a big leak and he decided to run. He was running from the law and the reality of a father who drank himself to sleep just to wake, breaking free of his dreams just like his own dad did. His mama cried when he walked away. He told me that he heard her words every single day. You'll be broke, busted, back in the day, ain't nothing but a dumb kid. He said, I may stumble, I may fall, but it won't be in Omaha. He hopped a midnight train late in the fall, found himself freezing in East St. Paul with no food to eat, no money to call. Well, what would he have said? Thought about leaving and heading back home, but he could hear his mama say that I told you, son, and pride ran thick deep down in his bones, and he held up his hard head. He got a job digging graves just to cover the rent. Shovel for an hour and get 45 cents. He was restless as a river, hell-bent as the passing of time. And he was hayseed tough, but just a wasting away, expecting to be in one of them graves any day. He was ragged, he was rowdy, he was full of rage, and war waged in his mind. He said, I may stumble, I may fall, at least I ain't in Omaha. And then he saw a boy that looked about 18. He had girls hanging around him all out in the street. They were calling him a hero, kissing his cheek, and like that he jumped in line. He said, Uncle Sam said he wanted me, and I liked the idea of new shoes on my feet and a coat like that boy and some food to eat and to leave this mess behind. Well, the very next day, Tom was headed down south. Shave your head, learn to shoot, shut your mouth, march about, wallow in the mud, learn how to do without. Well, he was used to that. But for once he felt like an unstoppable man, like the flooded Missouri that swallowed his land, pushing farther to the edge, busting right through the dam. Well, he felt just like that. He said, I won't stumble, I won't fall, I'll show you all in Omaha. Well, Tommy ended up with Company B, 2nd of the 18th Infantry, replacing those souls lost in Sicily, green as his rucksack. And they were bouncing across the water to a foreign land, with beaches stained red with blood in the sand. They were praying to their gods and watching each man try to hold their worst fears back. Ramps down, head forward, lean into the wind. People shouting orders and then come in. They were begging for cover to assemble again, but there was none to be found. Get down, back up, get online, let's do it. Where's Jimmy? I don't know, I don't think he came through it. Getting madder by the minute, cursing Jerry's gonna rue it when we get the high ground. Praying please don't stumble, please don't fall. No, not here on Omaha. They got pinned down by a machine gun nest. Then he peered over his rifle. Way up ahead, he saw Jimmy alone, holding on to his leg, trying to hang on. He said, throw smoke, boys, fire, that's Jimmy up there. And he ain't gonna make it unless we get him to the rear. Well, his pack slowed him up, so he threw down his gear and once more began to run. He was running from the man they always told him he'd be. He was running through the singing fire splashing at his feet. He was running to the call of his best buddy, desperate for breath. He threw Jimmy on his shoulder and he turned around, started heading to the rear, keeping his head down, hearing nothing but the sound of his heart pounding inside his rattling head. Praying please don't stumble, please don't fall. No, not here on Omaha. Well, that's the story of Tommy McCay. And my name is Jimmy, and on that day he carried me like a bale of hay, and he gifted me all these years. And that's his cross over by that tree. And just like Jesus, he died for me and for you too, so you could feel free standing beside me here. So when you stumble, when you fall, think of him, think of them all. Pick yourself up, you stand tall. From my friend Tom from Omaha.
Well, James, thanks for joining us. Bruce, thanks for filling
Thank
in
you.
for Bill
I appreciate
today.
it. I enjoyed this very much.
For Bruce Mundy, Don Allison, I'm Buster Talent. We'll see you next week.